Welcome to today's episode of Between Neens and Deens. My name is Nina, and I'm joined by my best friend, partner, and baby daddy, Dayon.
And together, we're a couple of 20-something-year-olds just trying to navigate this whole first-time parenting thing.
So we're laying it all out there and talking about all the things you wish your parents told you about love, sex, and happiness. It is okay to not be okay. That is this week's podcast episode. We are sending much love. There are so many wildfires happening right now. There's a ton of smoke in Vancouver, and I feel like on top of everything else that has happened this year, we've just been taking a lot of time to reflect inwards, kind of just be with ourselves and check in with ourselves, both our health and our mental health. And I've also recently found out that I've been experiencing postpartum depression, which is very interesting for me because I thought of it as something that I might experience in the weeks really soon after birth.
Like right after, yeah.
Yeah, like right after birth.
It feels like it hit quite late, like almost like you cleared it, but...
Yeah, because I was like, oh yeah, like I'm feeling fine. Like at the beginning, I mean, obviously there's like so much joy and happiness, and there was a lot of trauma that obviously we've talked about just in relation to my birth and kind of feeling like I was a bit useless because I was healing and working through those emotions. But I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't classify them as postpartum depression because it just felt like I'm overwhelmed because of my situation. Whereas postpartum depression kind of feels like a beast of its own, and it's kind of like these overwhelming emotions that you can't really explain. Whereas in the beginning I was like, okay, like obviously I feel overwhelmed because I just had a baby. I feel a bit useless because I can't really do anything. So like I could kind of explain it. Whereas now I just feel anger. I feel irritable. I feel sad. I feel mad. Like I feel so much anxiety in my body. Like it's so, like I haven't felt this much anxiety in my body since when we were deciding whether or not to go through with the pregnancy during my first trimester. And so I feel like because it's a very similar type of anxiety, it's not one that I've really felt before, then I was like, okay, something is different here, because it literally starts at my gut and it like crawls into like my neck and like just takes over my mind, and it's awful. Like it feels absolutely awful. And I think,
do you think that it is related to the breastfeeding? Because we did read a few articles that say that it can be linked to breastfeeding, but I guess like, have you experienced that feeling of anxiety when you weren't breastfeeding?
Yeah, so when it first started, it was every single time that I would sit down, maybe in the last 2 weeks, every single time that I would sit down to breastfeed. And like breastfeeding now, after the last couple of months of like, you know, trying to figure it out, getting him to latch, like my breast getting engorged, and like all of my breast milk now and like the whole routine of it has kind of regulated. So for a while, like it was like, it's been fantastic. Like I don't worry about an oversupply or an undersupply. Like I just am
you got into the groove of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So like when we're talking about anxiety about breastfeeding, it's not because of that. It's that every single time that he latches, and he latches beautifully, every single time that he latches, and like the second that he does, I feel this anxiety in my body, and it's so weird. And I mean, it could be related to like the one time that I sit down in dark room to think to myself is also the same time that I'm sitting down to breastfeed. So it could just be that.
Linked in that way.
Yeah, it could be that. It also could be the actual act of breastfeeding.
Yeah, because I read online about how when you do breastfeed, like your body goes through a lot to produce that milk. And don't quote me on this, but I think that I did read that like your serotonin levels get a little bit, your dopamine gets, I guess like other parts of your body are being used, so then that part of your body is like missing or whatever, so then you feel like that. I
feel like what you're saying
is not making sense. No. But like without the article in front of me, I can't really quote it exactly.
I'm just gonna tell you what Dayon tried to say, but basically your body is working so hard to produce all this milk, so it's not producing enough, or I guess how much dopamine you would normally have to feel, you know, not anxious. And so it's a very small percentage of women that we've read online that are affected by this. And so it very well could be me. Again, it could also be situational because we are in the middle of a huge move. I wouldn't even say in the middle, because the move is done. It's just now we're in this
in the middle
this new
of organizing
home.
It all.
Yeah, so we're like in the middle of organizing it all, and it's obviously so slow compared to all the other moves that we've done, because usually we move into a space and we stay up until like 2-3 a.m. just like moving everything around. We're like so excited to put things together, and we are excited, but at the same time we are so exhausted from like continually working and also raising a human being. And he's also going through sleep regression, which basically means that he's like learning to sleep all over again, so he's not sleeping through the night anymore. So like all of those things combined. And us
adjusting his living space probably doesn't help too.
Yeah, we keep moving like his bedroom and like his crib, but now I think we found like a place. We
found the best way, I think, the best option.
But basically, it's just, it could be a lot of things.
Yeah,
is all I'm really saying, and I can't really be too sure, unless obviously the situations change and it still is there. Mm-hmm. But regardless, like I've just been feeling a lot of very, very strong negative emotions, and it just kind of hit me out of nowhere. And I think that when I thought about postpartum depression, when I hear about it, and even just like the name of it, you know, like I think in my mind I assumed that women would give birth and then immediately afterwards you're so sad all the time and there's no joy, you know, because like, yeah, I don't know, that was my idea of it. And I think that's why I was like, oh, like I'm definitely in the clear. Like this is fantastic. I'm so happy. And like that's the thing, is that even as I'm talking about this, there are so many days and weeks and honestly even months where I was just so happy. Like all those negative emotions that had like very good reasons behind them that I listed earlier, those would still come up. You know, we would, you know, maybe argue about things, but it's all a big learning curve and that's kind of to be expected. But I was generally very happy and just very present. And I feel like I still am, but there are just some days where it is just so much. And like the other day, Dayon left to go to basketball. I knew he was going to leave. It was totally fine. He's done it before. So it was just me putting Blue to sleep. And obviously he's been sleeping less well lately because of his sleep regression and teething and all that. And so I tried putting him to bed and he just like would not go to sleep. And for some reason, I just like snapped and I lost it. And I was just bawling. Like I was just like ugly crying. And I was like, please just go to sleep. Like, please. And I mean, obviously your baby can pick up on those emotions. So I think my stress made him more stressed. And so then he was crying even harder. And we're just both there crying. And I'm trying so hard to put him to sleep. And I know that in the beginning of parenthood, you read a lot of things that are like, when you feel too stressed, when it's way too much, just put them down in their crib. Even if they're crying, they're in a safe place, and just walk away, because it's better than you trying to push. And then like, you're just going to keep feeling awful. So I just needed to like take a step back, and I still felt awful. I was still like, I went to another room and I was just continually crying. And I texted Dayon and I was like, come home now. I can't be alone. And he immediately came home and helped me put Blue to sleep. But it gets hard. And like, I think that I expected that those days would happen, and I didn't expect to feel this out of control. Like, I think the best that I can relate it to is when I was on like a really bad birth control when I was in college. It was just like this one pill. And I've like tried a bunch of different ones, but this one in particular was awful. Like I literally went to sleep every single night for a month crying, and I had no reason to cry. Like I would literally get into bed. I just, like I mean, that's what it is, you know, like it's different levels of like estrogen. And so basically, like I would crawl into bed and I'm like, I don't even feel sad really. Like I don't know what I'm upset about, but my body is telling me to cry and just sit here and veg out and be sad. And so I felt so out of control of my emotions at that point in my life. And I guess other various times where I've been on birth control, but I just hadn't felt that way in a long time, and I wasn't expecting it. So I think like
kind of hit you like a ton of bricks, eh?
Yeah, it definitely did. Yeah. And I think like all of this is just to say that, you know, like I obviously had a lot of preconceived notions about what postpartum life would be like, what postpartum depression would look like, even after reading so much about it and hearing other people's stories. But it very much can exist in conjunction with, and it's not mutually exclusive with, joy and happiness and so much love for your baby. You know, like I thought that I had missed it. I had missed postpartum depression because I was just so happy. But then sometimes it just sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important to know, because like it's not your fault. There's nothing like wrong with you, really. I mean, obviously postpartum depression is a very real issue. You should definitely talk about it and seek help if it is affecting you and like hindering you from experiencing joy and like things like that. But
yeah, there's definitely a lot of like solutions or like methods and things like that to help, because I know like my friend who said she was dealing with it for years.
Yeah.
And she offered like, she said microdosing of like a type of antidepressant really helped her.
Yeah.
And it's like an antidepressant that's like in the form of chocolate, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, she said that really helped her because she went through an extremely rough path with her postpartum depression. And
it's
I don't know.
crazy,
I think everyone reaches different levels as well, and so there's different things that help you. But I guess
it's just like crazy how little people do talk about it though, because I have yet to talk to my mom about it, but I mean, she's never mentioned it. I mean, like, I know that her raising 2 children that were like a year apart is very hard, and I think that's the thing, is that people talk about how hard it is, but they don't talk about the fact that this is like a real actual issue. It's not just that it's hard. Raising a child is hard, you know, like that's a given, but like on top of that, having postpartum depression and feeling like these emotions that are out of control and like having these really dark thoughts, it's hard. It's really, really hard. And so yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys, because I didn't realize that anxiety and anger were a big part of it. And I was like, wait a minute. I have been angry for a very long time.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
once I read that, I was like, oh, it all makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, it comes in waves as well, because like I experienced where like, you know, you're super happy, and I would never assume that like, you know, you're having a tough time in any way, right? But then it comes in waves, and then there's times where you're like just so angry, and there's like you kind of see red, where it's like there's not really much, but also I'm frustrating. I get it. You are
not very good at handling those emotions. Dan is great at like loving me, and when I'm happy and he's happy, then he's like so fantastic. You are so fantastic.
Thank you, baby.
But when I'm angry, all you want to do is just push every single button until I burst.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I like to
You do like to instigate, because I hear you arguing with your mom. I know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't like being yelled at. So, like, I try to, you know,
deflect.
Return that with
defensiveness.
Like, defense, and then also like a little bit of retaliation. And then
but it's not,
it never turns out good.
It's never good, because I'm like, you're just talking out of your asshole right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not
and
having it.
And I know it for the most part.
That's the thing too, is I'm like, we both know it, so why are we having this conversation? And it makes me more angry.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's gotten to a point now where, when like I start to feel rage, either I suppress it because I'm like, it's just gonna make him defensive, or I'm like, you know, pick your battles. And I think that, I mean, I want to say that I am better at it now. And to be fair, I mean, I'm better than when I was a teenager. So, I mean, that's gross, right? But, like, but you do definitely have to pick your battles. And sometimes you just can't help it. And you should know that I'm going through things. But I guess, like, for you, on the flip side, they say that dads can't experience sad dad. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, postpartum depression usually happens to the birthing person, but obviously it's just like a huge shift. Like, it's a huge life shift. It affects every part of your life. So like, it very much can affect both parents. So do you feel like there have been times where you either felt like out of control of your emotions, or had emotions that you can't really explain, or sad dad?
For me, I think like I would get hit with like frustration, and then it would turn into anger, and I don't want that to happen. So yeah, it is you can't really control it. Mm-hmm. But I experience that the most when he's a baby, but he's being dramatic. Do you know what I mean? You know, when he has those moments where like he needs to sleep.
To us, it's dramatic, but to him, it's the only way that he knows how to communicate.
So like, I mean, like when, you know, when obviously I don't breastfeed him, so like when you give me like breast milk or formula in a bottle, then I like bottle feed him, and then like he like gags or like chokes on the nipple, and then like, you know, like, and then he'll like quickly switch and then start drinking from it, and then like be dramatic again, and then like not want it and spit it out, and then just scream and cry, and that would like frustrate me the most, because like
Theon has no patience. You guys should know this now.
Sure,
I have seen you try to feed him, and he does the same thing to me too. When I'm trying to like give him a bottle, like he'll do that same exact thing. Even when I'm trying to put him on the breast, he'll like, it's because he's so upset that we didn't catch on to what he was trying to tell us earlier, that he's like, why? And then he's finally like, okay, this is what I want, so I will just stop now. But like, you don't have the patience to like push through to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you're just like, he's being dramatic, I need to just stop now. But then it like prolongs this process. So
but that's the thing, it's like, see, I don't want to be that way, but it just like, it just hits me, and I like can't do anything about it. And I mean, like, yeah, his like screeching when it gets like out of hand, and I just like don't really understand like why he's doing that, and I just want it to stop. But I mean, if you read online, it's like it helps him develop.
But that's
language.
The thing is that since the beginning, like you're always trying to rationalize his action, but you have to understand that he is straight up like an alien that has been dropped into this planet, and he does not know anything. He doesn't know that his screeching is frustrating you. He doesn't want to frustrate you. Like, it's more frustrating for him because like he's like, let me go to sleep, change my diaper, feed me, and he's trying to tell you these things, or he's expecting you to know, and you just don't. And so then we just keep doing all this other stuff, or we ignore it. And then he gets frustrated, and he's like, why are you not doing these things that I'm telling you? Because the only way he knows how to communicate is screeching or crying. So, I mean, that's the thing, is that I think, like, you're constantly trying to rationalize a baby that doesn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because you assume that he has, like, an adult mind, that he's, like, doing this on purpose to you or to frustrate you.
He's a super baby. He should know.
He's not.
He's just a regular baby. But, like, yeah, it's just, like, I love him so much. And, like, I want him to get all the food and nutrition and sleep that he needs. And it's, like, I think the most frustrating is when he's, like, at the verge of, like, falling asleep. And then he, like, does something and it basically, like, starts screaming and wakes up and, like, all this stuff. Like especially when you're holding him, he falls asleep in your hands. And then you put him down in the crib and then, like, he just, like, you know, like, moves all around and wakes up. So it is frustrating because you're like, we were just there, and then you do have to repeat the process from square one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, I think being, like, really exhausted and tired, and it's never his fault, but, like, just being in that state of mind, and then it's just, you know, it's very exhausting. And I think, like, that amount of, like, exhaustion turns into frustration. Like, really strong amounts of, like, frustration where it's just,
and then we
like,
get frustrated at each other because we're both just
and
so
then we start
tired.
bickering, and because
it's like
we're just
3
so tired.
a.m. and I'm just like,
Then we both say, like, little jabs to each other, and then it just gets worse.
I would say they're big jabs. And then in about an hour, then it's like, I don't even care. Like, what's the point of being angry or fighting? Like, it's just, at the end of the day, like, we both want the same thing. We want this baby to sleep.
So, yeah, I guess, like, I haven't really felt, like, sad dad or any, like, depression. Is mostly just fatigue and then followed by frustration.
Yeah. And I feel like that's I think the main difference is that, like, you're dealing with exhaustion and frustration and, like, needing to be more patient with a human being than you ever have in your entire life. But I think that, like, where it differs from my experience is that I have all of those things as well. And then on top of that, it's, like, all of these emotions that I can't really rationalize the way that you're able to rationalize that, okay, he shrieks and therefore I get frustrated. You know, like, he shrieks and I get frustrated too, but then all the anxiety and, like, the, like, anger that turns into rage, like, that doesn't make sense. You know? So I think, like, that's
it's, like,
where...
unexplainable within you.
Yeah, so, like, I think that's where, for me, I was like, okay, this is, like, an issue. And I think it took... I think that maybe if I didn't explain it away, or if I wasn't so used to explaining away emotions like that, then maybe I would have caught on to it sooner. Because, I mean, the way that I'm phrasing this narrative now is as if, you know, like, at the beginning of the pregnancy, or at the beginning of postpartum, I didn't experience any postpartum depression, and now all of a sudden at 4 months I do. But to be fair, like the anger that turns into rage has been there kind of the whole time, you know, and that's in large part because my hormones are changing and because of this huge new change. And yeah, I feel like once you realize how often you explain away those emotions, or you're like, oh, it's not a big deal, you know, that's just you. Like, I think for so long I've accepted that these really strong negative emotions are just who I am, but that's not the case. And I feel like it's just because I've been pregnant and in postpartum for so long that I don't remember what it's like to feel normal anymore.
Yeah.
Like before I'd get angry, but it's like a normal level of angry, whereas now I just see red. And it can be kind of scary because it's like it makes me so dramatic as a person, and I don't like feeling that way. So all of this is just to say that, you know, there's a reason for it, and I know that there's so many other people, and so many people have reached out to me, and you're not alone if you're feeling these things. And even if your postpartum experience doesn't sound anything like mine, but you do feel different, then it's fine, you know, because this is such a big, huge change in your life, one that you can rationalize, but also there's so many changes happening within your body and in your mind that of course it's going to have some kind of effect on you, and a really, really profound effect on you. But from what I've heard from other people that have gone through this experience is that it does get better and it does go away, and for the most part it is very much temporary. So I mean, I just cling to that, and I know that like I hope that like now I know that when I feel those emotions that I can let it wash over me instead of like taking major control of like my mind and body, because I think like I need to be better about just observing it as it comes and then letting it go. Because a lot of times when I'm in these moods, or when like these emotions happen, I cling on to them for some reason, and it's as if I want to be angry or I want to be upset, but it's like I don't really have control over how strong it is, and so I should also just give up control and let it just wash over me and leave when it wants to leave, instead of like clinging onto it like it's part of my identity. But yeah, I mean, I
used to do that a lot. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I still do sometimes for like certain things, but yeah, I used to cling on to like certain emotions and like kind of put myself through something that like,
yeah, I think a lot of times, I mean, honestly, I feel like I like to imagine that my life is like a movie, and sometimes I just want to feel things. And I know that's like the most emo thing you've ever heard, but like I feel like especially when I was in high school and even a little bit in college, I was just very much about romanticizing your life, but in a lot of ways, I mean, obviously romanticizing your life can be very positive. And in a lot of ways, I do that more positively now, but I think I was doing it in very negative ways when I was younger, because I watched so many movies that, you know, make me feel things, and I wanted to feel things in real life. And so I would almost create scenarios or cling on to scenarios or people because I wanted to feel really intense emotions, like whether they were like positive or negative. And
put yourself in dramatic situations.
Yeah, like I definitely had some very dramatic relationships and very dramatic, I don't know, instances. And I don't know, like I feel like even now, even though I've grown so much from that person that I was, it all was in my mind to create this narrative about my life so that I would never live my life without regret, and it would be this like great grand movie that I was the main character in. And that sounds so narcissistic, but that's what it's like when you're young, I guess.
Yeah, I remember I took that into my first relationship too, where I was like, I want to have a relationship where we like argue more. And I
more
think, like,
passion.
Yeah, because there weren't as many arguments in my first relationship, and I'm like, I want like someone to like argue with, like in the movies, like where it's like, I love you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh
like,
man, we do a lot of that. Well, actually, not so much anymore. In our first year, we did.
First year, yes.
Yeah, in our first year. Now we don't, because
we're on year 3 now. We're exhausted, bro.
Now it's like we start to get there, and I'm just like, no. It's fine. Yeah. I love you. Come here.
Exactly. So yeah, it's okay to not feel okay, and let those emotions just like run through you,
and also talk about them.
What helps me the most is, sorry to interrupt again, but like what helps me the most, because I just don't want to forget, but when you told me that one time when I was feeling like really depressed, was it's temporary. Yeah. Like it's only temporary. That helped me the most.
Oh yeah, Dan was wigging out. I was like, you are not okay, but I was just like holding his face and I was like, this is only temporary. This is only temporary. And
that actually helped me so much, because I guess like you
when
always
you're in
forget
it, you
to tell
feel like
yourself
it's your whole world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's only temporary. And obviously we can only speak from our own experiences, and obviously people that are dealing with like these emotions at a much larger scale. Obviously, you know, I can't speak to that experience and like how intense that can be and like how prolonged that can feel. But I think from our own experiences, like these really intense emotions do come and go, and sometimes they stay for days, weeks, months, and sometimes they're here for like 5 minutes. So I think for me, like what does help is just knowing that things are temporary and there are always resources, and that I am surrounded by people that do care. And I will say that you are much better now at dealing with my sad emotions than when we first started out dating. Like I mean, I feel like I'm very good at comforting, and whenever you're upset, then I do a very good job of, you know, talking you down from that ledge and like being there for you.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to learn off of you so that I can do the same thing.
Yeah, and like it's getting better, but for a long time I was just like, I would be so sad and upset, and you're just like, okay, yeah, you're okay though, like you're gonna be fine. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like that is like the worst thing that you can tell somebody.
I only knew from like what I received, or like from what I knew back then too. You know what I mean? So like,
have all your exes comforted you in that way?
Yeah, I guess so. I can't fully remember.
Interesting.
And like, I can't fully remember like those specific moments.
Feels like a lifetime ago. We talk about this.
But I don't know if I wouldn't say necessarily that I learned that from like, I wouldn't say that I learned that from my past relationships. I would say that I learned that from like my parents and like people that were like my close friends and stuff like that.
To be fair, I mean, I didn't learn it from my parents. My mom was very much, you were okay, go drink water, everything will be fine. Mm-hmm. You're fine. And like I told her that I was like, I mean, the first time that I really experienced like depression, like real hard depression, was in middle school, and I was having a lot of issues with like this girl that I was friends with, and we also like would get into fights and we would hate each other, and I mean, it like really like rocked my whole world, and I just didn't want to go to school. I like didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to do anything. And when I told her, and when I finally was like, I need comfort from her, she was just like, just, you're fine. Like, you don't need friends. Like, you just go to school, you're fine. And I was like, how is that helpful? Like, at all. Like, and it was just so bad. So I think because I received such poor support. And to be fair, it's like, I mean, my mom obviously just deals with things in her own way, and she's very much like, yeah, you don't need friends, you just need family. But I'm like, this is not helpful. And I was like, I definitely need friends to survive in school, but I think because I didn't receive support in the way that I wanted to, then I just became very good at providing support. And I will say I have made great efforts to be better support to my friends over the last couple of years. But I will say that growing up, I was much better. I had always been better at supporting my romantic partners than my friends for some reason. And this probably is also because of my mom's often said statement that like friends don't matter. And this is going so off topic right now, but yeah, it's just interesting because I saw that my mom and my dad had such a strong partnership, and like even if they weren't really supporting each other, I just knew that like they were each other's everything. And so for me, I was like, if I can support my partner, like that is going to be my person, you know? But like
the priority.
Yeah, and like even though I was like so resistant to my mom's idea that like friends don't matter, I still wanted friends. But then I think it like in the back of my head, I was always like, okay, but they don't matter. So then it's like, if you're not really being supportive, it's like whatever, if they leave, you'll have new friends. And yeah, so it took me a lot of years to unlearn that and to like be a better friend. And I feel like now I'm like a pretty good friend. I try really hard. But anyways, I don't know how we got on this topic, but essentially I feel like you have gotten much better at supporting me, because when I called down the other day and I was like, please come home, he like came home, he gave me a hug, and then without like saying anything, you just like went to Blue's room, helps him go to sleep, and was like, do you want to take a bath? Let's draw you a bath. And I was like, yes, that's everything. Yeah, it's like so much better than just telling somebody you're gonna be okay.
And that's the thing, and because I learned that the way I used to be from my parents, because like, yeah, I mean, and I don't know, like it could help you sometimes it doesn't. And I think like
it never helps me to just be, because that's the thing. That's what we're learning now with Blue, is that like we're reading a lot of like parenting books, and it basically tells you that you need to validate your children's emotions. And like I wasn't validated when I was younger, and I don't want to do that to Blue. And I feel like by telling somebody when they feel, say when I feel intense sadness, you know, like if I have somebody that says, oh, you're fine, you're going to be okay. First of all, I know I'm going to be okay. I know that it's temporary. I know it's going to wash over me. I know it's not forever. But I also am feeling sad, and I can't just not feel sad. And so I need somebody to not tell me it's going to be okay, it's going to be fine, you're okay. I need somebody to be like, you're okay, or you're sad, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's how because like I was saying earlier, like my parents, they would just be like, oh yeah, it's fine. You don't need those people. Like those people aren't supposed to be in your life. Oh wow,
our parents are so similar.
Yeah, or like you'll find somebody new. Like you're great, you're amazing.
Oh my God,
like,
is this why we're together? Is because our parents have shaped our friend and romantic love languages.
Of course, we're very similar. And like, yeah, so like. They would always be like, you know, either feed my ego or just tell me everything is going to be okay. And obviously those are great intentions, right? And so that's kind of just like all I really knew as well. If you're feeling sad, like intense amounts of sadness, I am unable to put myself in that position and just hear and just tell you what
empathy.
Yeah, but also just like I would just tell you what also is overall truth and coming with good intent. But like it's not what you want to hear at the time, right? So
yeah.
But I don't know. I guess when I heard it from my parents, it never felt like it would make me frustrated. I think it did kind of help, but like not as much as it could help. Yeah. So I think that's where I kind of learned that like I could be more of a help. But I think that's why you kind of like
sweep your emotions under the rug. Like you're like, oh, a lot of sadness. Okay, I'll just do something else to make me feel happy, and then I won't be sad anymore.
Yeah,
but it's like, but that's the thing, is that you're not dealing with the thing that's making you sad.
Yeah,
so like
just keep coming back, and exactly. Then you just deal with it as it comes back.
That's the thing, is you do that with me all the time. When I'm sad, Dayon like will want to just make me happy, and I'm like, I don't want to be happy. I want to sit in this. This isn't the same as what I was talking about earlier about being dramatic and romanticizing your life, but like sometimes you need to just have a cry, you know? Yeah, you need to work through your emotions. Like what is actually making you upset?
And that's what I learned now. Like in regards to when I supported you last, when you called me to come back, like. I knew that you needed to go through and you needed to like cry and feel what you need to feel, and what better place to do that than inside of a bath? Yeah. You know what I mean? So,
in a nice warm bath.
So yeah, now I know that I just need to be there to like support, listen, and try to help in a way that isn't necessarily telling you something that you already know.
I don't like being told things I already know. Exactly. I hate unsolicited advice. Like it's not hard to support somebody. I don't know. Like, I feel like it's, for me, usually what I do...
Not necessarily easy, though.
I guess so. Okay, but for me, what I usually try to do if somebody's, like, very much in distress is I usually ask questions about how they're feeling to get a better gauge of, like, all the emotions that they're feeling and, like, maybe what's causing it, or helping them to, like, find clarity in what's causing it. Not offering advice, because usually it's not asked for and therefore would just irritate the other person more. But just kind of try, even if you can't understand, or like if you haven't been through a similar situation, like understand that it's okay for that person to feel this way and that you're there with them, you know?
These are the Nina rules of consoling.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like it works with you, and it works with like my friends.
Yeah, you work wonders. I sometimes I'm like stumped when somebody like hits me with certain
really
things,
worst,
and I'm just like, oh. I like try to stay quiet because I'm like, if I say anything, it just might be the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So I just
But then that translates as like unsupportive.
Yeah. But it's more just like...
Yeah, it's because you don't know what to say and you don't want to say the wrong thing, which is better, I guess, than like saying the wrong thing.
Yeah. Which I'm good at doing sometimes.
Yeah. And then we'll come home and Dan's like, was I being cringe? And I'm like, yes, you were. Let's go. It's like every single time after we hang out with people, like we'll go through like Dan's report card of like...
of like things that I was cringe about.
Yeah, like, did you say that okay? Or like...
I don't know. I just feel happy a lot of times, and then I'm just like... When I get hit with something that's like different from the emotion that I'm feeling right now, I'm like,
but let's go back to happiness.
Like, can I take myself out of that? But then also like, can I bring everyone into this world with me? But then like, obviously that could be frustrating and cringe and just like everything. So yeah,
I think the thing is that like, I love you so much because I appreciate so much like how much joy you experience in life. And ultimately when I do think about the human experience, like, I think everybody should experience more joy, you know? But I think like I think we balance each other out because I try to be as realistic with my emotions, and like you always want to experience joy, which is great. And you find it very easy to experience joy, which I think a lot of people struggle with, which I sometimes struggle with.
I'm a simple man to please.
Yeah, so it's like, I think that the way that you experience life is very beautiful, but I think that it's when it comes to those more difficult emotions that you try to brush off, or you try to, in yourself or other people, act as if they don't exist to just get back to happiness. Like, I think that's, if you continue to do that for too long, then it gets bad, you know, because it's going to come out at one point or another, because you need to deal with those. And so I feel like that's why we kind of balance each other out well, because it's not like I'm always sitting here trying to like get you to be real and sad and mad. But I feel like...
But when it comes, you definitely help me work through it, as opposed to... Like, you probably wouldn't even necessarily let me just brush it under the rug again.
No. Now I read you so well. I feel like I read you so well. Like,
yeah.
I know pretty much every emotion that you're feeling. And I know that if you're being quiet...
Again, I'm just a simple man.
Yeah.
You know?
Very, very simple book. I learned to read you in
I'm a picture
just
book.
2 years, yeah.
There's no words in that book. It's just pictures. Super easy read.
Yeah. Okay, I want to end this podcast episode with talking about a couple of things that we each like to do when we're not feeling okay, and things that we personally do to make ourselves feel better. And so for me, some of mine are cooking. I mean, this might not be for you if you don't like cooking, if it stresses you out like Dan. But I personally really, really, really love cooking. And I think it's something about doing tasks, and like, I'm also good at cooking, so I feel like I know that I'm gonna make something good. So that's like a positive, like, I don't know, affirmation for me. But I feel like when you're doing kind of like mundane tasks, you're not really thinking too much besides like, you know, I'm chopping. I'm stirring. And like, it's therapeutic to kind of just think about the task at hand instead of having your mind race about a million other things. So I personally really like to cook. Going on walks is really nice. Sometimes it's just like going on walks by myself and just listening to music, and sometimes it's just us going on walks. And I think it's like on days where I feel like I need a walk to clear my head or to feel less anxious, I do have to communicate that with you, because then it sets the tone for the kind of walk that we're gonna have. And like, then you're also able to be I guess kind of like more respectful of like the space that I want to kind of be in that walk. Like, so we won't usually like talk as much, or we won't talk about work or things we need to do. We'll just talk about like how we're feeling, which does help me. And then I would say that when I can remember to, journaling is also really good, because when I have way too many emotions and way too many thoughts in my head, like I need to put it to paper so that I can let go of them. Because a lot of them don't need to be floating in my head, but it's just the fact that like I haven't really given them the time to not come into fruition, but like I haven't really given them the time to like really manifest into like its full idea or its full scope. Then they're just kind of floating in my mind, and they're like, remember me. So I need to like write it down and let go of it. So I feel like those things really help. And just like sleeping more. I feel like usually when I'm feeling like really overrun by less favorable emotions, then usually I just need like a lot of rest, hydration. Don't eat too many like sugary snacks. Personally, Dayon probably will tell you to eat all the gummy bears. But when
our lists are opposite.
Yeah, they're very opposite.
They're so different, except for the sleep part.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, like when I eat crappy food, then I feel crappy. And even though that's like all you want to eat, I think there's like a balance between eating crappy food to like make you feel like comforted, and I do that as well. But it's when I like overeat those and I'm just like not even thinking, and I'm just like just overeating, then it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, now I feel gross, and now I feel even worse. Which does happen to you, because I know that you eat gummy bears to make yourself happy, and then in about 30 minutes they won't be laying there with like so many wrappers around him. I can
overdo it for sure.
And then he's like, I feel sick, Nina, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you at this point. So that is my list. That's what I have for now, and then I guess I'll let you know if I have any others, but your turn.
Yeah, so sleeping is definitely one that helps. And then my answer for basically everything is going out and playing ball. Like that always just like helps clear my mind, and like I guess focus on the task at hand. But like
exercise.
It's just something that like, yeah, like thinking of just like doing movements that come naturally and like have that sense of comfort, which is basketball for me. Like that I love the most. Going for a bike ride is really nice as well, because like you get all that wind in your hair, and it's really just you on a bike, and like you are alone, because I don't know, I don't have any extra seats on my bike.
It's not tandem. Even if you're tandem biking, you're still not really talking to each other.
And then another thing that really helps me is just like music, like either listening to music that I really find comfort in and really like, or like discovering something new. Because then discovering something new, you get your mind off of it. Yeah. But then having something that you already know and love, that is like comforting, that is like really helpful. Gummy bears, because it just brings you back to being a child, and that's probably when you were the happiest. When you had no responsibilities. And yeah, I guess like eating cereal and chilling, whole Saturday morning vibes, like that gets me.
I will say, actually, now that we are so busy, and it's like go more than ever before, I feel like in the past, maybe if I like spent like a day in bed, then I would eventually start to feel like, okay, I'm just vegging out here, and now I feel worse because I'm not being productive. But now, because I feel like we're like so active all the time, that like for a moment, just like being in bed and just like either cuddling or being in bed alone in just like cool sheets is honestly the best feeling. Heavenly. It's so nice. And like when I'm not feeling okay, just like trying to stay grounded in, and like just take a moment to myself to relax and be like, it's okay. That really helps. And the last thing that I will say is, honestly, there's a new one: being around children.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, being around, like, I mean, just our child is like a little bit.
Bro.
Really?
Well, just like seeing like how much stuff they touch, and like.
Okay, well that's very different. For me, it's their joy.
Yeah.
And they're so happy, and they're so pure.
They're so pure.
They're so pure.
And that's what I say, like...
The reason why for me it helps when I'm not feeling okay is because it reminds me that my problems are very small in the scope of things. Mm-hmm. And also, sorry, this is actually the last one.
This is a run-on sentence.
I know, this is a run-on sentence. It's been a run-on sentence. But the actual last thing is hanging out with people, not just people that are like in your immediate circle, but I think like reconnecting with people. And that's not really to say like, you know, reconnecting with people that you might have cut off because they're toxic, or people that you don't actually genuinely have a connection with. But I feel like a lot of times I'm like, okay, like I need to be surrounding myself with people that are on the same wavelength, you know, doing the same type of work. But I mean, actually, I don't really do that anymore. But when I do take the time to connect with somebody from my past, or connect with, you know, new people, or like one of Dayon's friends that I've never met before, that just has a very different perspective on life, or a very different experience in their life than I do, then I feel like it also helps me feel like my problems are a lot smaller than they are. Mm-hmm. Because when you're, like, say it's like anxiety about work or career, if I'm surrounding myself with people that, you know, are pushing me and elevating me, but then also at the same time causing me a lot of anxiety because I'm like, okay, they're doing this, and so like, am I doing enough? Like, they're being really creative. Am I creative enough to like compete or like blah, blah, blah? And like, you know, like those, when your head starts going that hamster wheel, sometimes it's nice to take yourself out of that, hang out with people that are like not in that world, and like reground yourself in like real life, you know, like work isn't everything, you know, and I feel like now I'm just talking about work, and it's not just, that's not the only time that I have these intense emotions, but it's definitely one of my biggest areas, I think, of stress. Yeah. So
that's why I say, like, when I'm feeling the most sad, the thing that helps me the most is reconnecting to like being a child. Do you know what I mean? Because that really does just make me the happiest. So yeah, that's why I turned to like gummy bears, and also playing basketball. That is something that I always did as a kid. So yeah, just having that like carefree comfort and just like of just being able to just be ultimately your purest self. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I always try to like go back to, that like rechannel.
Yeah, people are trying to move forward and Dan's trying to move backwards.
Yeah, I'm a grown ass kid, but yeah, I mean, that's when I feel like the happiest, when I'm like, all right, like how can I feel like a child again? Do you know what I mean? Because yeah, I mean, admit it, that makes you so happy. Like, there's no way.
It does, but I think you also are a lot more in tune with that more childlike side of you. I think if I was quite a serious child. I mean, I obviously had like a lot of fun and things like that, but I think for me to try to tap into what that joy felt like, that purity in children.
But like rollerblading, ice skating.
Yeah, okay, yeah, to be fair, I'm very happy when I'm rollerblading and ice skating. So I think it's anything that feels nostalgic to you.
Point has been proven.
Thank you. But yeah, anything that feels nostalgic. And I mean, honestly, if I just play Sims for a couple of hours, fantastic. That's my childhood. So yeah, whatever, I guess, made you really happy as a kid, maybe start there.
So if there's anything that you learned from this episode, it is okay to not feel okay.
And I know that you guys already know that. And regardless, I want you guys to know that we've been there. We feel you. It's okay to not feel okay. And you're not alone. You know, like there's always people that love you, and you matter, and you are enough as you are. And some days just surviving is enough. So don't push yourself too hard. And at the end of the day, try to be like Dan and just experience the joys in life. It's hard, and I don't know how you do it. Yeah, I don't know how you mastered it, but that's just you as a person, and it's something that people work so hard.
Years of practice. Yeah, I think I always tried to find ways to reconnect with how I was as a child.
Yeah. That helps. Especially if you had like a great childhood.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But that's it for this episode. You can find us at Neens Deens on Instagram. I am your girl, Neens.
And I'm Dan's Day Off.
And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.